Hello and welcome back to Slugs, Bugs and Dirty Rugs, which is my podcast about my personal experience of being homeless. Episode 4, Finding My Feet. In the last episode, we discussed how I struggled to settle into the life of homelessness and how I found it difficult to move on from the area where I used to live, my mum's house basically. So today, in episode 4, we are going to be discussing how I finally made the decision to move on from the house. I wasn't getting anywhere with just hanging about. I clearly wasn't wanted there. My mum made that patently obvious, and I just wasn't getting very far. I was sleeping on the ground, on the backyard. I was getting wet on a daily basis because it was not undercover, and I just couldn't carry on doing that. So I decided to move on a little bit further and find other places to sleep. And I did. I found the perfect spot. Because to be honest, I can't remember actually sleeping in too many different places. I think probably with a lot of homeless people, once you find the spot that you feel most comfortable, that's where you kind of stay. And that, for me, is what I did. I found this. It was actually a shelter. It was undercover. It was down the promenade where I lived, and they had these like shelters where people with benches, and people would come and just sit there and watch the sea and stuff like that. And I found this one which it was perfect. It was sheltered, it had a bench, and also it was facing away from the sea. So all these other shelters along the promenade near the beach were facing towards the beach, and you could be seen very easily by people walking past. But mine was a little bit more sheltered, if you like. It was kind of facing the other way. Not as many people walked past it, and I felt much more comfortable doing that. It was perfect. I would go there every single night around about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I would sit there all bundled up in my coat. It was very I think I mentioned in a previous episode, my coat was quite a woolly one, so it was fairly adequate for the weather. And I would put my hands inside my sleeves, and I had 2 woolly hats on, like beanies, and I would put one over my head and the other one kind of over my face, and I'd have my scarf, and I'd lie there, and I'd still be absolutely freezing, like stone cold, because most of the time it was my feet that were getting cold, and once your feet get cold, the rest of your body doesn't have a chance. It was freezing. I'd struggle to get to sleep. I'd sleep on the bench under the shelter, and I'd be absolutely freezing, struggling to get to sleep. I did get to sleep though, but I'd wake up then around about 4 or 5 in the morning, mostly. And from then I wouldn't go back to sleep. I'd just sort of sit there and sort of shiver a little bit. I remember one time just putting my feet inside my backpack to try and keep them warm. That's how cold it was. Because don't forget, this was kind of more the colder end of the year. But trust me, even if it's in the summer, it's still freezing at night. It doesn't make any difference. But towards the end of the year, it's, getting really, really cold. And that's what I experienced. It was just freezing. That's all I remember. It's just cold all the time. And but one of the most important things, apart from trying to keep warm, was trying to stay safe. And it wasn't just staying safe, but I was also quite embarrassed about my situation. I didn't want to come across anybody. I didn't want people to see me lying there asleep or lying there or just sat there. I didn't want people to know that that's what I was doing. It's quite an embarrassing situation. So I would try and stay out of the way of people as much as I possibly could. One other thing, during my entire time being homeless, I didn't encounter any other homeless person during my time. That's not to say there weren't, but it was quite a small town and probably not where a lot of homeless people hang about. And as I said, I tried to keep myself to myself anyway. I didn't want to mingle with people. I didn't want other people to know my situation, except for I did let... It's kind of weird. I know I keep contradicting myself in that I didn't want people to know that I was homeless. I didn't want them to know that that's what I was doing, and I didn't want them to see me being homeless. But at the same time, I wouldn't keep it from anybody. If anybody asked, or if I came across anybody, I'd just readily point out that I was homeless and I had nowhere to live, basically, because by doing so it gave you the chance of being helped. So that's what I did. It was around this time that I started smoking. Now, I'd always been very anti-smoking. Again, I was like one of these people that was just very... I wasn't brought up as a smoker. None of my family smoked. I always thought of it as like a bad habit. It stunk. It was horrible. I always had that opinion. I was very opinionated about it. So I was probably the last person that anybody would expect to start smoking. However, I did. And again, it doesn't seem like the best time to have started smoking, because, when you're homeless, it's kind of like financially, it's one of the worst times you've got, right? So not the best time to be needlessly throwing money away on cigarettes. However, I can't remember why, actually, when or what situation it was, but I think one day I just thought to myself, well, I'm gonna die anyway. In this situation, at some point I'm just gonna die. It's like, it is gonna happen, because my situation isn't getting any better. I'm freezing all the time. I'm just struggling. I'm not eating very much. It's just, a situation where I didn't think I was ever going to get out of. Even though at this point, comparatively to a lot of people who were in that situation, mine was not a long time. Some people are homeless for years, but I felt like that I was not getting out of that situation. I didn't know how I was ever going to get out of it. I did not believe that I would get out of the situation. And I started smoking. I think I just decided one night to pick up some cigarettes, and I went back to my shelter and I sat there. I think it was something to do as well. quite looked forward to it. Just go up there, I'd smoke a few cigarettes, and kind of, I believed myself that it was kind of making me a bit warmer. I know it didn't, but that's how I thought, it's kind of, you light a cigarette, it's warm, and you're smoking it, and it's keeping you warm. That's not really the case, so that was ridiculous. But that's how I felt. I think psychologically I was trying to use that as like just something to do, basically, I think, and just something to look forward to of an evening, as you're settling down in the freezing cold. And then first thing in the morning when I woke up, like 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd then smoke the rest of my cigarettes, and that was that for the day. I didn't really smoke during the day, but it was my thing for the evening at night. Unfortunately, after all this finished, smoking was the lasting legacy of being homeless, because I smoked them for the next 10 years, and it wasn't the easiest thing to cope. It was something that I had to go through for a long time after I stopped being homeless. So. How did I eat? I think this is a good question. Not that anybody asked the question, but it's something I've got written down here. How did I eat? Because one of the big things when you are homeless is trying to survive, and part of surviving is eating food. And food is not easy to come by when you have no money. I didn't eat a lot, and I don't recall eating much, and I don't recall being like, I think when I got paid, like my benefits payments, the majority of that I just went on food, but I was not very good at budgeting it, and even though I was homeless, I still was not good at budgeting whatsoever. I would just go, I think once I got some money, I'd blow it, but because I spent like a couple of weeks of just having nothing, I'd then go, and I seem to remember going into the pub and possibly having a meal, but also having drinks as well. But apart from that, as I said a few times, I would not hide the fact that I was homeless. So people knew. In fact, it was quite well known around town. People knew that I was homeless. Even if they didn't say it, they knew that I was. And if possible, if they had any food, they would come up to me. When I say food, we're talking like packs of crisps. I remember being given packs of crisps by kids because I didn't have any food and that sort of thing. And I just remember being so grateful to people who would give what they had just so that I could have something to eat. And I've never forgotten that, and I never will. It's such an amazing thing to help somebody else when they have nothing and they need something, and that's what people did for me. It may not have been a lot of things, a simple pack of crisps here, but to me, if I've not eaten all day, it really, really did mean an awful lot, and that is, I couldn't thank them enough. It was just something amazing. One of the things which was really difficult to cope with, and I have mentioned this several times already in the past few episodes, but it's the cold and the wet. Constantly being cold and wet all the time. Once you got wet, you became cold, and you could not get through that because there was no way of getting warm once you were soaking wet. But one thing that happened to me, and I haven't felt anything like this before or since, was my feet became so cold and so damp from the wet that I developed verrucas on my feet, but like serious verrucas, like all over my feet, on both feet, to the point where I couldn't even walk. Like literally I couldn't put weight on my feet because it was so painful. It's unbelievable. And it was just like I couldn't I still can't get my head around how bad this actually was, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I'm not very streetwise. Not that this has anything to do with knowing what to do when you have verrucas, but I knew nothing at this point about anything. So I'm there, I've got all these like plasters, and I'm putting plasters on my verrucas, which doesn't help, I don't think. This certainly didn't help me. So I put all these plasters on my verrucas, and it didn't do the blindest bit of difference. But I have not felt pain like that for a long time since. So I remember going, it was the one and only time I actually wanted to go back to the house to ask my mother something, because I thought she would know. I remember from years ago that my brother once had a verruca, and he had like some cream or something to put on his feet or his foot, I think, something like that anyway. And so I went back to the house, I knocked on the door with the intention of speaking to my mum, and I asked her if she had any like something for verrucas, and she said no. I mean, she didn't look. I don't know if she knew if she did or not. I tried to kind of express to her that I had these verrucas. It was quite painful, and her only advice was to go to the doctor. So at that point I was on my own, and I was in serious amount of pain. I remember going to the doctor's. I didn't go for an appointment, but I popped in. Well, I was going to get an appointment, but I went in there and I explained to the receptionist what the problem was, and they said that I could go and I could see the nurse there, because it's not really a doctor problem, is it? I mean, if they know what to do with it, then that's even better. So they looked at my feet and they said, basically, because I didn't say that I was homeless. the ones I don't know if they wouldn't have been able to help me anyway. It was just an embarrassing situation. But they explained to me that the reason why your feet get cold they explained to me the reason why you get verrucas is because your feet aren't being dried, and they were asking me, are you drying your feet properly after you've had a shower or a bath or anything like that? So, they said if you don't dry your feet properly, then that's what happens, and the best thing to solve the problem that I had was to let my feet air. And I thought to myself, well, that is easier said than done. When you are sleeping out at night, how the hell are you supposed to take your socks off? you know. It's cold as it is. But that being said, that night I actually did it. I thought, I've got to try something. So what I did was, I took my shoes and my socks off that night, and I slept out in the cold, freezing cold, without anything on my feet. And yet it was cold, but it was okay. It wasn't too bad. In the morning, I woke up, and I can't explain what exactly happened, but I woke up in the morning and my feet, whilst they weren't completely better, they were significantly better. And I thought, oh my god, how on earth has this actually happened? I know I'm going on about this, about my verrucas, but I can't express to you just how painful it actually was. I could not walk. So to have that relief was like monumental, and from that moment on they just improved, just improved. I can't explain it. It was amazing. Probably one of the best feelings of my life. It was. I don't know. It was really. It was good. Talking about anecdotes here. Oh, this was horrendous, but to this day, this next thing that happened to me, to this day, I cannot believe that this was. I'm not going to be able to stop laughing at this. To this day, I cannot believe how bad this was, or how ridiculously stupid this was. I have no idea how, I can't. Really, I can't. Okay, alright, so what happened was, I used to have like a Walkman, a radio Walkman, and it actually was one of my main comforts, actually, is that I had this Walkman and I would listen to the radio and listen to music all the time, kept my mind occupied. That's why a lot of my song choices at the moment, well, the songs that I listen to on a daily basis, when one of these songs come on the radio or on Spotify or something like that, it always takes me back to this particular time, because I think most people would relate, certain songs bring back memories of certain times in your life. Well, I get strong emotions around the time of this, so. But yeah, I used to listen to the radio, and I think one night I fell asleep listening to the radio. I think I probably did this quite often, just to take my mind off things and make it easier for me to fall asleep. And I'm sorry, I can't. Everybody listening to this is going to think I'm absolutely insanely stupid, but it's a story I need to tell, right? So I woke up, it must have been about 5 o'clock in the morning, there or thereabouts, and I woke up, the radio was still playing, and all I heard was something like, there was this warning come over the radio, right? It was a serious warning. It was saying something like, there's a danger, there's like a tsunami or something. I can't remember the exact details, but it was something along those lines. It was going to be, you need to get out of that situation. You need to get to safety. You need to get away from the water, essentially. And I was right on the seafront, and it was quite windy, it was quite wild, and I thought, I need to get out of here. Right now, I don't, I was actually scared. I was scared, right? I needed to get out of that situation. I just told myself, I need to get out of this situation. I need to get myself inland to safety. And I did. I ran. Well, I walked very quickly. I got out of where I was. I walked, I don't know, probably about 20 or 30 minutes inland, and I found somewhere else to stay and to keep shelter just for a bit. And that was that. That was that for the rest of the day, and I just got on with my day and didn't think much else of it. And and I didn't think about this again for, I don't even think it was whilst I was homeless. Genuinely, I think I forgot about this incident for months after that. But what it was, and I don't know if you're gonna laugh or just slate me for being absolutely stupid, but what it was whilst I was sleeping, it was, and I'm listening to the radio, it was an advert that came on the radio, and I can't remember, I don't know what it was for, but it was an advert basically advertising something, saying something, the world is going to end if you don't buy this thing, right? And I thought it was like a news bulletin alert thing, because that's what I woke up to whilst I had been, in that sort of period where you're kind of half asleep and half awake, and maybe you're kind of still dreaming a little bit. That was the kind of time where I heard it, and I thought it was a genuine alert, like weather alert, that you need to get yourself safe. Turns out it was an advert, and I feel, and I still think, I still feel absolutely stupid, but I do think it is a story worth telling, because it's one of those that you think, can one person really be that stupid? Yeah, they can. That would be me. But that's just a story that happened, to me. It's one of those things, never a dull moment when you're sleeping rough, honestly. Absolutely. But one thing I used to do to try and keep warm is, because when you're homeless, you haven't got anywhere to go, obviously, and you don't know, what do you do all day when you're homeless? Just kind of wander around doing nothing. Time kind of does just go away in the end, whilst you've been wandering about for a long time. But one of the things I found best to do, first thing in the morning, it was like 10 a.m. in the morning, pretty much every day, I used to go to the library. It's probably a common tactic for a lot of people. I would go to the library and I would stand there right next to the radiators to keep warm. That's what I would do. And that was my thing. It was ironic, really, because I used to go there every morning, and I ended up bumping into somebody that I used to know quite well, and he was kind of, at the time, bunking off college. He was trying to keep it from his mum that he was not going to college, so he would go to the library instead, and I bumped into him every day, and we used to hang out for a bit every day. So I told him that I was homeless as well, so he knew, and that was fine. But it was it was something that it's something to keep me occupied, I guess. I'd also stay in the library for a bit as well, and read some stuff and things. And it was actually, I think it was during the time I was in the library that I kind of started coming up with ideas about books and writing, things that I want to write when I come out of this, and how I eventually came to the title of the Slugs, Bugs and Dirty Rugs. I know I mentioned that about when I was sleeping with the slugs. I kind of had the forethought of the idea, but that's when it fully formed in my head. This is what I'm going to do. I'm sure I wrote it down somewhere as well at the time. Anyway, yeah, that was the library and my experiences there. Apart from that, one night I was... Now, this is another real issue with when you're homeless. Well, I can't speak for everybody, right? But I do feel like this is a fairly common thing. Again, people don't want to be disturbed. They don't want to be interrupted whilst they are homeless. You see all the... See, this is what annoys me. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I don't take too kindly to YouTubers interrupting and filming homeless people whilst they're trying to get, go about their daily business. And the reason is because people, when they're homeless, firstly, they are people. Just because they don't have anything, they don't have anywhere to live or go or anything, and they don't have much money or food, it doesn't mean to say that they are there for you to be gawking at and filming and making money out of your YouTube channel. That's not what they're there for, because they by and large, they want to be left alone. They don't appreciate it when you come up to them and think that you're doing some amazing deed, right? And that's not to say that it's not nice to try and help them out, but if you're like... The thing that happened to me was I was asleep under my shelter, and it was around about midnight, I guess, and I was woken up. I was actually asleep, and you know how difficult it is to get to sleep when you're homeless. It's really hard, and probably not best to wake somebody up once they're asleep. I'm just saying that's probably a good tip, unless you have a really good reason for doing so. Don't wake them up, because it's probably taken them quite a while to get to sleep. And this couple woke me up, and they said to me that they wanted to help, and they wanted... I think they were going to offer to take me to this place, or they had some information. I can't remember the exact details, but it boiled down to they were going to offer to allow me to stay at their house that night, and then help me in the morning, I think. But without even thinking about it, because this is kind of a reflex action, I said no, I'm okay, thank you. Because firstly, I'd just been woken up. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Secondly, I didn't know who these people were. And thirdly, I was quite embarrassed about the situation. Two people were just walking past me. I was trying to stay out of the way of people, and they came up to me whilst I was trying to stay away from people. I didn't want to be disturbed by people, even though it from the outside looking in, it would seem like they were doing a good thing, and I was in a lesser position and should be grateful for the help offered. But I couldn't accept it because I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I was embarrassed. But they did give me a leaflet to an organisation which could possibly help me, and then they went on their way. But that being said, it's still nice when people do offer to help. I'm not saying don't offer to help them, because that's stupid, but it's just it's an awkward situation where you need to weigh up what the homeless person actually might want, and not being woken up at midnight might be one of those things. But yeah, that was this is how I was settling into my life as a homeless person. It was I don't know, we're probably talking around about a couple of months in or something like that, I would say. I guess we're up to about that stage. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to my thoughts on this and my experiences. Please remember to come back next week for episode 5, where we're going to be discussing how I started making plans of trying to get out of the situation that I was in, because up to now I hadn't really even thought about it. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, have a lovely day. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.